Remember that I would never be gay, and they're changing my voice. This video is about how the Marissa DiNapoli murder, the River North Club shooting, which was formerly called the Hush Lounge, the Texas floods, my parable of the abrupt end, and young Noble's alleged suicide are all connected. Also, there were 2 more mass shootings last night or early this morning, and one of them was in Indianapolis. It was on Illinois and Washington Street. And I was saying that the government was doing this the whole time, and Washington and Washington, D.C. are very much connected to the government, especially Washington, D.C. It has to do with the wordplay, has to do with where the White House is, the Pentagon, what have you. Okay, I'm going to try to make this quick. I have like 9 points to do here, so let's get into it. Point number 1. The main and most difficult question one must answer to convince people that this is so is why me? Why are these things centered around me? For those of you who have seen my other videos, you might wonder, hey, why does he keep bringing up himself? Because they filmed me and they made it hard for me to make the video. They're filming me right now, so I'm trying to make this quick. You'll see that I'm right here. So I've proven definitively that there is only one logical way to do God justice when answering existential questions, questions in regards to why we are here, and interpreting the Bible. And that is to see past race and other barriers, and to see that God's order is not white, or Jewish, or LGBT. It is a heterosexual Royal African Falcon top martial arts order. Just when I say that, everyone who has sense immediately knows that I'm right. Not because maybe they're black or they're black supremacists. I'm not a black supremacist. It's because it's just very logical. Even if you never read the Bible, you know that people who are more righteous and intensely righteous than other people are closer to God. It's straightforward. And who's more intensely righteous than a Royal African Falcon top martial artist? And those who yoke themselves to me. Okay. Martial is marital scrambled, as in marriage, nigh Christ, and the top martial artist ever possible, as overkill by my 12-year and counting top martial arts challenge, and the wordplay in Kuroi Obi black belt. Okay, which points to my tribe. Obi is an Igbo word, and Obi means belt is a sign of rank in Japanese and Chinese martial arts, what have you. Even Jiu-Jitsu, they wear, a black belt, right? Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then you have, Angolan, which is Angola is a country in Africa, Angolan capoeira and Brazilian capoeira. So we see how these martial arts travel around the world, and obviously martial arts come from Africa. There's just a lot of racism in the martial art world, a lot of racism out there that causes people to deny this. And, the racism in the world caused people to kind of start to breed people a certain way so they look different. People look different in these days than they used to look. And that has to do with corporate breeding processes. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that. If you have any questions about that, put in the comments. It has to do with eugenics, social Darwinism, scientific racism, and biodemography and other ideas that a lot of people aren't familiar with that really dominate this society. Okay, so if one cannot assign the real importance to God and to the top martial arts ever possible, they are not holy. They are childish, unjust, and evil. Think about it. I often bring this up when I explain why Nimrod was actually a righteous person, and people who are racist rabbis and stuff like this, they're interpreting the Bible wrong there on purpose. There's nothing in the Bible that says Nimrod was evil. Okay? You have to read it very carefully. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. In Psalms it says, the arrogant can't stand before the Lord. And God is a warrior. It's a mark of the beast, right? He's hunting the enemies of God. But for those of you who don't understand that, think about people like Nelson Mandela, and very righteous, humble Africans, and black people with a very good heart, Martin Luther King, people like this. Where does it come from? It comes from these ancient African martial artists who the Bible attempts to kind of explain in terms of Kush, okay, Sudan, what have you. So it says, Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod, Nimrod founded Babylon. That's their way of saying those ancient African martial artists, right? And he was a mighty warrior before the Lord, and he was this very moral guy, and then later Babylon fell. So Babylon was great when Nimrod founded it, and then it fell. And you get people like Nebuchadnezzar who are very much antagonists in the Bible. So bear with me. We'll get into these connections here in a second, but first we have to answer this first question. Why does it center around me? Why would the elite, in their extreme immaturity, why would they center this around me? It also has to do with conceptions of intelligence. Existential intelligence, answering why we're here in the first place. Logic-based intelligence, okay. Interpersonal, understanding yourself, understanding others. Okay, these things are more important than mere book smarts. And quite often people who are book smart and say math aren't so good in science and art and so on and so forth, and vice versa. So that they're jealous, right? That's why the FBI and all these groups, they're an intelligence agency, right? ICE, right? Alpha ICE, CIA, right? ICE, ACE, and FBI is fib scrambled, and so on and so forth. Okay, and there's a reason for that. Bear with me, you'll see that I'm right. Okay, so where are we here? All right, it is that simple, right? If you don't assign God in the top martial arts ever possible, their rightful place, you're being very childish and unjust. And there's a lot of Jews out there, white people, token minorities, gay people. They don't want to give me my rightful place. A lot of Jews and white people and gay people probably would gladly give me my rightful place. But there's a lot of people that do not want to give me my rightful place because they're unjust, they're childish, they're evil, they're senseless, they're reckless, they're careless, they're dumb. And for what? For money? For females that aren't moral or smart enough not to shun me? Okay, see my Proof I'm Christ playlist. It should prove it to you beyond a reasonable doubt when coupled with this video. And the videos on that playlist are only like 3 minutes long. They're very well made. They might have edited them since then, but I made them very well. Okay, and it makes my point very well. And you look at it and it makes you think, and you're like, okay, I see what he's saying, and you see a deeper version of the Bible. You know you're not interpreting the Bible right when you interpret it in a way that's shallow. The concepts in the Bible are very deep, and you see the contrast between me and the churches and everyone else out there that you're going to come across when you see that Proof I'm Christ playlist. So let's get to point number 2. So point number 2. So when I was 16, right before I was sent to reform school in Southern California, and then a behavior modification wilderness program in Idaho, where the 2 firefighters were recently killed, right? In that state. It's a small, the population is relatively small. A female named Maria Mello broke my heart. I do not love her anymore, and I'm not obsessed with her, but the incident caused me to carve a broken heart, okay, under my wrist and on the back of my forearm. Okay, so it's on the back of my forearm, right under my wrist. Marissa's name is Maria's scrambled, and the mass shooting, okay, in the River North nightclub was at the album release party of a rapper named Mello Buckz. Now the word rapper is similar to the word raper, like rap and rape. Okay, the word rape is scrambled in the word rapper, and so it's rape and PR, right? PR, lift, purr, what have you, and it goes back to the rape by deception that dominates society. Most people, they don't appreciate this enough. The vast majority of sex that is occurring is a result of people trying to uphold social norms, which is disassociating from reality. Think about, why would people date some hot secretary, have sex with a nerdy guy? Well, it goes back to the economy, right? They have the money. Now, why do they put money over love? Okay, money isn't everything. Righteousness is greater than wealth. Why don't they get that? And it goes back to organized deception. Organized mass rape by deception. So now how do we know that this is a significant connection? Well, you have to realize how extremely unlikely it is for these 2 events to occur like that, and for those names to line up, especially as I've made many videos where I point out the wordplay in major events. The Uvalde shooting, okay, is like a place here in Morgan Hill, right? A place called Uvis, meaning grapes, which goes back to the grape, G-rape. It goes back to, the wine in the Bible, the wine press, the vineyard of the Lord. There's a lot of connections there. So you combine Uvas and lead and get Uvalde. I've proven that better in the video there. I don't want to get off topic here. It's out of the scope of this video. But let me just help you understand this. When you look at probability and the statistics, okay, statistics of murder, what have you, you look at the wordplay, you look at the timing, it's very unlikely. It's also a River North club. And the guy who is the suspect in the Marissa DiNapoli murder case, which is right here in Morgan Hill, and I went to school in Live Oak here in Morgan Hill, okay, he was presented as a Norteño gang member, right? River North. And there were also other events that occur, we'll get into this shortly, that make it clear that it's a message. So what are the odds that someone named Marissa, whose name is Maria Scrambled, okay, who resembles females in key pictures of mine. One is a picture of a female that looks like her with a Christian saying on her that I got off of TikTok that I posted a while back, and one is this picture on one of my best pictures ever, okay, that they've covertly edited, mind you. They added red to the lips, what have you, so I put a sun over the lips. I put a female there who was shown as like the ideal female in the process developing. I think she was 18 or some 20, and she looks younger, but some of these Filipinas look younger, and she looks a lot like me. So you have people who are Hispanic that look a lot like me. You have people who are Filipina, people from Thailand. It has to do with who's related to who and why. It has to do with a lot of things. The migration of black people before the slave trade, during the slave trade, what have you, and after. Okay, so I'm going a little over time, so let's just get to point 3 here. Point 3. These events were all in the news on July 3rd, okay? And that's the day before fireworks, right? And leading up to this July 4th, there was a fireworks factory that blew up, and 3 guys who were presented in a way that's very similar to Norteños were in the news, okay? And it was kind of leading up to this event. So there's the fireworks. And if you don't understand Igbo mythology, most people don't. Eri is the equivalent of Jesus and Horus in Igbo mythology. He's the son of God. He comes down from the sky, so he's a skywalker. And in Egypt, one of Horus's oldest forms, sometimes seen as his oldest form, is Har-O-Eri. Har, H-A-R, next letter O, Eri, E-R-I, S. And Eri in Igbo mythology is a deity, is the son of God and a deity of order and justice and chaos and righteousness and holiness and so on and so forth. And obviously this romantic idea, right, comes straight from heaven, like that one Faith Evans song, Sent from Heaven, and Monica's song, Angel of Mine, what have you. So in Greek mythology, Ares, E-R-I-S, is a deity of chaos and discord, because to people who worship the devil, and most people see Zeus as the devil in most Christian churches, okay, is their stated argument at least. To the devil, order is chaos for him. It drives him insane, and vice versa. Okay. And also there's Ares, A-R-E-S, in Greek mythology, whose Roman counterpart is Mars, who's a deity of war. And Ares, E-R-I-S, usually accompanies Ares into war, because there's chaos and disorder. And Ares, a.k.a. Mars, is also a deity of rape. Mars is known to rape Rhea Silvia. Now, there's a lot of connections there. Rhea is Hera scrambled. It goes back to the Asherah poles as Hera scrambled in the Bible. I can go into that, but ask me in the comments. I'm trying to keep this, video, made so it covers certain topics, so I don't go off on a tangent here. So bear with me here. Okay. So yes. So again, the fireworks, right? Fire, right? Fires. Aries, the F Aries works. So Aries is sexual works, right? The F-U, right? The Aries works, the work of God, right? Making love. God is love. So they're mad about that as part of what's being expressed. Now, if you think about it, no offense to anybody, a lot of Jews are a bit nerdy, right? I think that if you look at, no offense to anybody, there's Jews in my family, I'm not racist, I'm even part Jewish, right? Very black dominant genes, don't naturally look Jewish, but the center of Jewish culture, if you're going to look at it in terms of one type of person that really characterizes Jews, and any Jews who look different than that are kind of starting to approach something else because the Jews are mixed. Okay, it's like the Revenge of the Nerds guy. Okay, it's Jews quite often are goofy, they're silly, they're very sorority-like, right? Very fraternity-like. They're thrown off, they have scatterbrain. Quite often they have autism or something like that, and as a result, they're very good at a lot of things like science, and quite often I'd imagine they're good at math. Okay, because they think a certain way. They're not very sharp people, right? So they're very much compared to the jackal in Egyptian mythology, Set. Okay, he's kind of scatterbrained. You think about jackal, it's kind of like a fox, but sillier, more thrown off. Okay. And there's also other forms of Set as well, the hippo and the boar. Think about a Jew when he gets strong, it's like a boar, kind of thrown off. Okay, and a big fat Jew, for example, as a hippo. Now some Jews, some Jews are more on point than other Jews. I'm not saying this to insult Jews. No offense to the Jews. I'm saying this to help you understand what is going on. I'm not racist. I don't care if you look like, Schmeagol. I don't care if you look like the Toys R Us giraffe. I don't care if you look like whatever, right? But this is important for you to understand why I'm right here. Now, black people are the most diverse race. Okay, you have all kinds of different looking black people. But if you're going to choose one type that embodies them all, well, more important to black people than to Jews is warfare, right? Think about the spears. Think about Shaka Zulu. The Angola, where we get capoeira, okay? Think about Egyptian warriors, Kushite warriors, right? Ethiopian warriors, right? Amhara, Oromo, Nigerian warriors, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, okay? Ibibio, what have you. These people are all very fierce, warlike tribes. So central to black African culture is a certain health that allows you to be a great warrior, right? Picking your food carefully, and also training martial arts, training war arts, what have you. There's various martial arts. The Imbo for the Igbos, that's one specific martial art. They have others. There's I forgot what it's called here. I used to talk about this all the time. There's Yoruba and there's Hausa martial arts as well, and so there's a leopard society where they fight in a very fierce way, and they try to understand the leopard and so on and so forth. There's leopard martial arts societies all over Africa. So central to African culture is that kind of warrior chief with a spear. So that's characteristic of black people. Okay. Now, characteristic of white people, at least these days, is more, this guy with a wig, right? These guys with wigs and muskets. Okay. You have Nero. He rose up and he's celebrated by these people. So kind of book smarts were celebrated by Jews historically for hundreds and hundreds of years leading up to now. Sort of wig-wearing culture with muskets and kind of Nero and these kings in Europe were the celebrated guys for hundreds of years leading up to now. Now that's the general point of reference for the races, right? You have everything from, southern Mediterranean Europeans all the way to northern Europeans. So you have to understand that to understand why Set is a deity of jealousy, and he's also a deity of white and Jewish and LGBT people. Now, it's not that white and Jew and LGBT people can't be good, but Set connects to settler. The word whites has the word Set scrambled into it, and white people know this. In fact, there's no evidence to suggest that the people who named Set, when Africans must have called him something else, okay, weren't the people who came up with the English language, right? Latin language, Roman language. These are the same types of people, right? So there's a connection there, right? For example, Horus is a Greek word, okay, and Greece and Rome are right next to each other, and their cults overlap. And these cult scribes are the ones who came up with the, early Roman language, which, these Latin-based languages, French, Spanish, English, I'd imagine German, they're Latin-based, right? Okay, and it goes back to the Latin root, and the root that was taken by the scribes, by the people migrating, what have you. So to understand what's happening here, you have to understand that I'm not, magically wrong. I am right about this. And I'm right about the point of references for the races. There was a stela of the races where you're going to paint the races to try to tell the races story. How would you paint the Jews? It'd be like the Revenge of the Nerd guy dressed like a rabbi or something, right? And how would you paint the white people, right? if you're going to represent them for the last 500 years? It'd be some guy with a musket, maybe some skinny guy or something, right? How would you represent black people? It'd be some kind of warrior with a spear, because athleticism and warrior and martial arts are a huge part of black culture historically, and they weren't so nerdy. They basically weren't nerdy, and they weren't these musket guys. They were the greatest warriors on the planet. And the Bible says the Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name. Psalm 89, he sets apart a warrior. The parable of the tenant says the kingdom of heaven will be taken away from you, given to a people who will perform its works. You have tenants stationed in Morgan Hill, and there's Vineyard Center or whatever, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there's these strong connections here. Morgan Hill, right? Morgan Hill, Morgana, Morgan Le Fay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I've gone a little bit out of the topic here, but these connections are potent and key here. So let's just go to point 4 here. Around 1 million Igbos or so and other Nigerians came to the Americas on ships during the transatlantic slave trade, right? And the ships manifest its list of its cargo, right? Manifest. And that's where you get this idea of manifest destiny. It goes back to the slave trade, including with ships, that predates Columbus coming to America. Okay, there was a slave trade that included black people, right, across the Mediterranean from Africa. It goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so they came up with this idea of manifest destiny, and then they decided to take these black people from Africa. That's why they took black Africans as slaves of all people. Why black Africans? Well, it wasn't just because they're strong, because they were trying to manifest the destiny, because in Rome, they were very familiar with Egyptian culture. They were just across the Mediterranean from Egypt. Okay, and a lot of their cult rituals in Greece and Rome involved Egypt. And so they wanted to manifest Horus's destiny. And of course, there was Horus worship in Greece and Rome leading up to the creation of the Bible. The Bible is by Baal, and Baal is Set's Middle Eastern counterpart. Zeus is Baal's Greek counterpart, and Jupiter is Baal's Roman counterpart. Ear. Aries also can be seen as a play on words for ear, eyes. The sun and the moon said to be the eyes of Horus, right? And you had this canal, the Suez Canal in Egypt, where the word Suez is the word Zeus scrambled. And in Spanish, these people, they said that Jesus, right, say, hey, Zeus, because the guys who gave them their language worshiped the devil. No offense to anybody. The truth might make people mad, but it's the truth. And I'm sure you can appreciate someone telling you the truth, especially as I'm being screened out here. So we're at point number 5, I believe, here. Okay, so we talked about the manifest destiny, right? And if you look at the word manifest, last time I looked it up, it said it's an occult phenomenon, to manifest. And then you get these New Age people talking about manifesting money and so on and so forth. Okay, it's an occult phenomenon. It starts with the word man, like the famous occultist Manly P. Hall. Okay, and H.P. Lovecraft. Notice the craft, like Freemasonry. Lovecraft and Manly P. Hall was a Freemason, just like Michael Aquino, the famous Satanist. And Anton LaVey probably has some connections to that there. So the Masonry is known as the craft, the Lovecraft. A craft can be a vessel, manifesting the vessel. And who sings the best love songs in popular culture? It's black people, right? Soul brothers, soul sisters. And again, I'm not a black supremacist, just telling you how it is. And hopefully the family of Marissa DiNapoli sees this video and has some answers as to why their loved one was taken from them. Okay, it has to do with chaos magic, what's called occult cut-ups, cutting up words, rearranging them. An anagram, for example, Anna G. Ram, and the word Marissa has the word Ram in it, is when you rearrange the letters of a word to make one or more word. There's also cryptograms in the Bible. Think about the lexicon, right, of the Bible, the gospel, the go spell, the alphabet. Anyway, and vowel to L, and hell and L, and spell, rhyme and reason. So, point number 5 here. Now, my family is from the Eri cult center in Nigeria, and I'm from the royal family of the Skywalker of Eri. Okay? And I've said it before in the videos, I'm going to say it again. My kingdom is not of this world. It's called Aguilera. Now, I wouldn't have told you this if it wasn't for a gentleman named Jeremiah Aguilera, who was killed on the other side of the mountain almost certainly by gang members, and he looked like he had some connection to the Norteño gang. But I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and venture a guess. If you know about it, please put in the comments, right? And his name Jeremiah, and around that time I presented videos about Jeremiah, but I think what had happened was it was after that occurred, and I kind of was looking for scripture, and then I came out with it, and I made the video, and I said, oh yeah, that guy's name was Jeremiah. I'm pretty sure that's how it went down, and it could have something to do with brain hacking and so on and so forth. Though they can't take credit for my martial art achievements. That's like trying to take credit for a falcon flying at 242 miles an hour. So anyway, so he was killed on the other side of what's called the Santa Cruz Mountains. And the Santa Cruz, right, is Satan's Cruz scrambled. And Watsonville is what's son vile. Vile meaning evil, right? Cruella de Vil, cruel devil. Okay. Watson also is, I had a Mr. Watson who was a biology teacher in high school at Webb, and there's this famous Satanist called it's called Gary Webb or something. Anyway, so if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that guy's name here. Now, both Horus and Set are said to be sons of Ra, and they've been described as a Sa-Ra, okay, a son of Ra, and that is probably where we get the word Sarah. Even though that's a female's name, because the Greeks were notorious for being gender neutral. For example, Hermes, a deity of crossing into various territories, crossing over into the underworld, what have you, and boundaries and trade and markets, right? You know, his counterpart is Mercury, and Set's planet is Mercury. He mixes with Aphrodite to get hermaphroditus. Now, I went way over time. Let's just shoot through this here. I got some points to make. Let's wrap this up here. Okay. So, again, you have the Santa Cruz Mountains, Satan Cruz, right? Watsonville in Santa Cruz County, and what's son vile. So they want people to worship Set. And you have gang sets, and Watsonville's full of gangs, north and south, of gang sets, gang factions. Point number 6. To make a long story short, I am in the martial arts spirit of God, and I am trampling the souls of all rebels and burning them with divine fire in the spiritual realm just by existing, just by living, right? Just by living in the spiritual realm, my soul is